Previously on Reading in Church and Other Distractions.
We didn't show up with the same text, but we've come to an agreement.
The old Victor Borga line when the accompanist was talking to the performer, he says, which song should I sing? He said, well, sing the one you like the most, because I'm going to play the one I like the most. So that's what we're going to do here. But
It's like the Dude Ranch.
We've gotten on the Dude Ranch.
You know that one?
I don't know that one.
It's like the guy's welcoming people to the Dude Ranch. He says, welcome to the Dude Ranch. Don't worry if you've never been to a Dude Ranch before. It's like, we've got a horse for everyone. If you're a big guy, we got big horses. If you're a little guy, we got little horses. And then if you've never ridden a horse before, we've got horses that have never been ridden before.
Nice.
Dude Ranch humor.
You know, they say that for podcasts, that nothing is a win. Like, more Dude Ranch humor is what I've been getting on the comments.
Start strong.
Yeah. We're starting strong this week. So, it's winter. And still the middle of winter. Is there anything about winter you like, Mike? Mike, you are from California originally, right?
Really cold
today.
Is there
anything that you like?
It was -4 with the wind chill this morning.
Yeah, that's not one of the things you like, though.
I gave a final, and I said, take everything off your desk, and if you started a fire to stay warm, please extinguish that. Can't have anything on you.
So there's nothing.
The whole discussion of it being a wonderland might be overstated.
Okay. All right.
Welcome to Reading in Church and Other Distractions with Rob and Mike. This week's episode, Devo, the Cookie, and the Sad Chair.
All right, well, welcome back to the podcast. We are in the 6th week of Epiphany. I'm Robert Wallace.
And I am Michael McKeever.
We're glad that you have stayed with us and hope you're enjoying it as much as we're enjoying doing it.
Thanks for coming out on such a cold morning.
Yes,
it is 0 degrees.
I'm assuming you're speaking to our audience, but you're welcome if you're speaking to me.
Whoever can hear my voice.
At the same time. So,
yikes.
Great. Well, ready to look at the text?
Yeah.
Let's start going this morning.
Let's just do it. So, what are our texts? Did you already say?
I didn't say. They're Deuteronomy 30, 15 to 20, Psalm 119, 1 to 8. Thankfully, just 8 verses of Psalm 119. Okay. 1 Corinthians 3, 1 to 9, and Matthew 5, 21 to 37. So that's
just a couple of tasty bites.
Yeah.
Faith nuggets. For your morning.
Christian band name, the least popular Christian band name ever.
Faith Nuggets. And then I think it's McRib after Faith Nuggets. Yeah. And then the Shamrock Shake. That's turning into the seasons.
Oh, boy. Nothing like watching the seasons change.
Yeah. All right, I will read Deuteronomy 30, 15 through 20.
Great.
See, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I am commanding you today, by loving the Lord your God, walking in his ways, and observing his commandments, decrees, and ordinances, then you shall live and become numerous. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away and you do not hear, but are led astray to bow down to other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. I call heaven and earth to witness against you. Oh, there he goes again.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you don't have other gods.
I would like to call geography as my
first witness.
All right, I digress. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live, loving the Lord your God, obeying him and holding fast to him. For that means life to you and length of days, so that you may live in the land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob.
Yep.
All right. So, interesting. We were jumping around. There's no Isaiah. They're about to enter the land.
Yes.
All right. And he's giving them some propositions here. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing something. Is this like one of those Saw movies where you got to make choices that are life and death?
Yes. I don't know the number of times Deuteronomy's been compared to a Saw movie.
That's probably a common.
That's that old chestnut, eh? Okay.
Preaching. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Not so much.
Okay.
Deuteronomy is the last big speech for Moses. That is his, this is his St. Crispin's Day. This is they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom kind of moment.
Right.
He's brought them to the edge of the promised land. And it's one of the fascinating things to me about the Torah is that it ends in a cliffhanger. Actually, all the sections of the Psalter, of the Old Testament, end in a cliffhanger.
Well, it's the sequel.
It is. Well, yeah,
it's good for the franchise.
It is good for the franchise. It keeps them coming back. But Deuteronomy, you get this big charge. You're going to go into the land. You're going to take the land. We're going to defeat the enemies. We're going to follow God.
Should we end with a cliffhanger?
We should probably do that. We should just stop with the cliffhanger. And so they say charge, and when they go, and then it ends, right? And then that's it. That's you have Deuteronomy. You move right into Joshua after that. But the Torah itself, which ends in Deuteronomy, there's a sense of expectation.
Right. Yeah.
So all three of them end in expectation. But this is Moses' big speech to the people, and what he wants them. He's on his way out. This is what he wants them to remember as he goes. And Deuteronomy's got a pretty simple formula for life. All throughout the book of Deuteronomy, there's this pretty simple formula. If you do what God says, it will go well. And if you don't do what God says, it will not go well. And
just simple observations from life.
Just that, yes.
Right?
As we've all seen, how the righteous always prosper and the wicked always suffer. That's just like.
And is there a name for that view? Is that the Deuteronomist?
That is Deuteronomic theology is what we usually call it, and you see it at work here, obviously in Deuteronomy, and in Proverbs, and basically all of the stories from Joshua to 2 Kings. That whole group really is organized with that kind of philosophy in place. And this is one of those times I always try Judges, absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because when they fail, bad things happen. Yeah. And so all of this is the time I always quote. One of my favorite quotes is James Sanders. He was a biblical scholar.
I love that chicken.
James, he's a great guy. Did a lot of work with the Psalm scroll from Dead Sea and did some other stuff. But one of the things he talks about, he was a canonical critic of a different sort than. Yeah, I'm sure our audience is familiar with the different levels of canonical criticism. So let me just rearrange your desk while I'm talking. Please feel free to decorate.
I have a what do you call this? A wind-up toy that has circus and monkeys, and I thought it was going to get in the way, and I just moved out of it.
Well, luckily it wasn't a distraction.
That's how I know that's my circus and my monkeys.
Yes. Usually I can handle, but this time you distracted me. James Sanders, how about that? I can bring it back.
Right.
One of the things he liked to say was that the canon is self-correcting. And what he is saying is that the Bible is really good at keeping you from taking it out of context if you read all of it. So while you do have these passages like Deuteronomy and Judges and Proverbs that emphasize do good and good things happen, you also have Job and Ecclesiastes and even Jeremiah, who is advocating this to the people of Israel, even though it's not at work in his own life.
You said that phrase, you quoted that the other day in an office, and one of our colleagues said there's a definition of canon, or that's a way, or that's a strategy of reading canon. I'm not exactly sure what he meant, because I was on my way out. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember that.
When Jim said that, he said something about, that's your definition of canon.
That's my definition of canon. Yeah.
Not if you meant yours, or that's what we mean by canon, as opposed to maybe anthology or something like that.
Oh, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that.
No, he's not here, so
we can't ask him. But whenever I talk about Deuteronomic theology that you see sort of at work here, I always compare it to potty training, and that. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Yeah. I don't really need to unpack that.
I know where you're going, but why don't you unpack it for the listeners at home?
This potty training. Now, I had boys, and if you have boys, as I understand it, potty training is worse than if you have girls, because apparently girls actually don't want to sit in their own filth, whereas boys can find something better to do.
It's just like the rest of the day.
It's just whatever.
Okay. Yeah, and I have 4 brothers, so I'm not the best person to ask about this.
So I hated it. I hated potty training. I hated, finding a way to make this work. I mean, it was finally, look.
You mean of your children?
Of my children, yes, of my children. And, finally finding their currency that made them care. If you make poo-poo in the potty, you get a cookie. If you don't, you sit in the sad chair. That was ultimately where we landed. And that worked.
I think you have that language in some of your syllabi. Don't you?
I do. I use the sad chair in my classes, of course, as most of us do here at Undisclosed University. But now you'll be happy to know that my children will use the bathroom just for the sake of using the bathroom. I don't have to give them a cookie now, nor do I have to make them sit in the sad chair since they are 17 and 16 years old. They do this well now on their own. so that
you turned a corner there.
we really have. It's a starting place, right? It's a starting place for faith, but perhaps not the end. You know, so
right.
you know, learning to. So I see that many places in the text, God is encountering Israel at different places of their spiritual development, and here we're trying to get them to obey for their own sake.
So cookie, sad chair, life, death.
Yes.
People have different shares. I think it's whether you're consistent or not. That's what they say. It's not what the reward and punishment is.
Well,
it's consistency.
Again, it was merely a parable. Let's not extrapolate.
Let's extend and extrapolate this
too much on that. But what I've always thought was interesting, and you want to see this at work, you can see it in Jeremiah, where Jeremiah is criticizing Israel for not even acting in their own best interests.
Yeah.
Even though in Jeremiah's life, he is obedient and it doesn't go well for him, right? I mean, Jeremiah does everything God asks, and he gets kicked out of the city, he gets beaten, he gets put in the stocks, you know, probably ultimately martyred. And Jeremiah's problem is, look, God has promised you good things. He's promised you cookies if you make poo-poo in the potty, and you haven't even made poo-poo in the potty for that. So I don't...
And don't look at me, my life.
Don't look at me. I'm not the example. Because Israel and Jeremiah, or Judah and Jeremiah, are at different points in their spiritual walk, is what I would say. And so Deuteronomy is trying to, I think, at the very beginning of Israel's life, getting ready to go in there, trying to help them at the beginning think in these terms, right? That as hope they can make poo-poo for a cookie if they can't do it for themselves. This is really high-minded debate we're going at here.
This make poo-poo for cookie. That would be intriguing, but
I don't think it would be the listeners we're looking for.
Yeah.
So that's what's hearkening back here. If you would just do what God says, you're going to get good things. Yes. If you don't do what God says, you won't.
Or Joel Osteen just says, you're going to get good things.
Well,
exactly.
Might
not want to listen to that Jeremiah character. There's other voices out there.
Exactly, and Ecclesiastes and Job and various others, Amos and all the prophets, really. But there's a lot of some callbacks here. I think that particularly in verse 17, but if your heart turns away and you do not hear, that word Shema in Deuteronomy is going to call right back to Deuteronomy 6, which is, this foundational identity-forming verse for Israel. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, or the Lord is one God.
That was pretty typical to pray that daily.
It is.
In first century. Would it be earlier?
Earlier than that? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know when that practice would have started. But it certainly has continued. And there's a lot of even, not just that, you hear those other echoes. Love the Lord your God comes right from verse 5 in chapter 6, right after here. So, there's a lot of repeated language in Deuteronomy. This love the Lord your God, walk in his, and do what he asks, teach your children. You
Good
don't have
preaching.
That
You're gonna sum it up.
Right.
In your prayer to God at the end.
This is remember, this is Moses' big sermon to Israel. This is a homiletical, this is a sermon kind of presentation, which is probably why, and I believe I have this right, Deuteronomy is the most quoted Torah book in the New Testament by Jesus, and possibly because the tone of this is Moses' sermon, and it's going to fit well usually when Jesus is talking about Torah is in sermon form.
And Moses said, someone like me is going to come along.
Well, sure.
And you got to listen to him.
Right. So, absolutely.
He said that in Deuteronomy. He said that quoting Deuteronomy. 18,
that
right?
clever Jesus. That's what's at work in here. I see a lot of stuff at work in here.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I think about this when I think about Israel today and how people think about Israel today, and it's so one-sided by certain Christian perspectives on Israel that there's no condition. There's not a justice component to living in the land, or you don't. It's almost a superstitious kind of thinking about Israel that they get a pass on the justice part. Well, it's like, well, no. If you read what God says about entering into the land, this and justice component.
Said many times that Torah, at its heart, is trying to talk about these justice issues, right? Take care of the people who can't take care of themselves, and that's when he says, "Observe the commandments, walk in God's ways." We've seen walking in God's ways has a lot to do with setting the prisoners free. That's the way God talks a lot. Bringing justice, lifting up the poor, the needy. That's what it is to walk in God's ways, and that's how you keep the land, is by doing that.
Right.
And when the exile does come, God's point, Jeremiah 29 is, well, you couldn't work for my calling while you had the land. Now you have to work for my calling in captivity.
Yeah.
So that to me is the 29:7 in Jeremiah. And so this keeping the land is not a superstitious issue or anything like that. It's we'll see if you can be my witnesses with the land. Oh, well, you can't. Okay, well, then I'm taking the land away and revoking the Exodus.
Yeah, what I mean by superstitious, sometimes Christians are very, they relate to Israel differently in terms of justice and ethics and say, well, not really sure. I think that they get a pass on that, and that they can't be any criticism or accountability. It's like, well, I don't think that's what God is saying here.
No, not at all. Because that
like
was basically the message of all of the prophets, that there needs to be accountability for being God's people.
Our basis for justice and accountability
absolutely
comes largely from these people. Yeah.
Great.
You think, I just spent all yesterday answering appeals to grade. Do you think if I called heaven and earth to witness, when I give my syllabus,
I think that could work. I mean, well,
I guess it didn't work.
See,
for
we
these
have
folks.
an advantage. We have an advantage in that we could at least call God to witness. We have an except.
Oh.
But when God is calling witnesses as an external party, when you're a monotheist, there's nobody to call.
Well, wouldn't that be good
creation.
on the first day of class?
I think that'd be good.
Hear me.
May God witness between you and me.
Now, we don't have mountains, we have plains. Hear
That's
me, ye soybean fields and corn, fruited plains, for I shall speak of my syllabus this day.
That's nice. I like that. You need to work
that
that
up.
up.
I might do that.
Or maybe have a puppet do it.
Sure, that'll be effective.
That would work. Maybe a small puppet could make that claim.
All right, should we look at the psalm?
By all means.
Psalm 119. Now, is this one of your psalms? This is
not one of my
psalm.
psalms. No, this is not one of mine.
Good psalm.
But it is
all
a
right.
good one.
I'll just read a portion of Psalm 119, maybe 1 through 8. Happy are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. Happy are those who keep his decrees, who seek him with their whole heart, who also do no wrong but walk in his ways. You have commanded your precepts to be kept diligently. Oh, that my ways may be steadfast in keeping your statutes. Then I shall not be put to shame, having my eyes fixed on all your commandments. I will praise you with an upright heart when I learn your righteous ordinances. I will observe your statutes. Do not utterly forsake me.
Yep.
Nice.
I'm grateful that they picked 8 verses because...
manageable.
Well, not just that, but it's 119 is an acrostic psalm.
Okay.
And there are 8 exactly.
8 of this letter.
8 of these start with the successive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So this is the Aleph.
Okay, Aleph.
Grouping here.
So 2 thoughts. 2 thoughts about this, just at first reading.
Okay. As I nervously say,
wisdom.
all
this is
right.
like a wisdom, a wisdom psalm of sorts, yes?
To some degree. It's a Torah psalm.
Okay, all right. And I'm reading about this person. This is pretty much describing me. It sounds like
me again.
Me again. This is really close.
I'm really close on this one. It is a celebration of Torah. It's the celebration of Torah. The Psalms have Torah running all the way through them. I mean, they are in 5 books, as we talked about. The very first psalm is a Torah psalm.
Yeah.
The middle of the first book, 19, is a Torah psalm. The middle of the last book, 119, is a Torah psalm. Oh. There are some scholars who suggested
the middle of the. Okay,
this is the middle of the last book. Yeah.
Okay.
There are some who have suggested at one point this would have been the last psalm. Now, there's no textual evidence to do that, but no one's ever found any manuscript. But when does that stop the scholar?
When does that ever stop the scholar?
Putting forward a theory.
Yes.
But that this is the crowning moment that guides it all. But again, coming back to this notion of Torah as God's teaching, God's instruction. Yeah. I mean, it'd be weird to our ears. It's weird to think about 176 verses celebrating the law.
Well, they're just working out. That's an alphabet. They're just working out some math here.
So you could have gone with 2 verses, and had a 44 verse one, and that would have been enough. But no, this is 8 verses. And to think about the order and the discipline it takes to write an acrostic psalm of this size is just really remarkable. To have, I mean, I challenged the students once to write their own psalm using some English equivalent of the Hebrew poetry. And so I'm expecting them to pick up parallelisms, right? Synonymous or antithetical parallelisms or chiasms or something like that. And I had one student who decided she was going to do an acrostic
Okay.
And so she did 22 verses.
Wow.
And I'm waiting to see what X is going to be, right? Because that's in English.
Right,
that's the challenge. Is going to be what you're going to do with X.
As a Scrabble player, I'm interested.
Because I'm assuming xylophone music praises you. But she wrote "Xeric winds parch my soul." Xeric. I looked this word up, and it's a desert wind.
Wow.
So I was like, all right, that's a nice
Triple
exercise there.
store.
Well done.
Man.
But yeah, that's the kind of vocabulary gift that's coming in this composer that is putting this song together, and so I always just marvel at that kind of discipline.
It's
that
probably
it takes.
harder for certain letters.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. He cheats, obviously. Verses 1 and 2 have the same word. So, that's... But,
most poets workshop things and go out and read things. I just be very interested in kind of workshop parts of my Psalm 119. Oh, again.
Here we go.
They call this one Gimel. Okay.
Oh.
Maybe you have 2 Psalms there. Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. No,
maybe
one.
None.
It's going to be 176. This is my vision. Oh, no one's going to buy this. But
look at the time.
But yeah, it's a great celebration. And a lot of people, what does an acrostic psalm mean? I mean, apart from the discipline it takes, there's that sense of completion, right? This whole like from A to Z kind of idea. So this is all you can say about the law and celebration of it, completely. This is complete. This is everything.
An OCD celebration.
It is
of Torah.
I would like to disagree with that characterization, but unfortunately I can't. So,
I would like to, though.
I would like to, but I think you may be onto something with that. You may have my next conference title presentation, nice. Psalm 119 or an OCD celebration of Torah.
It's not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Because I know, every time God closes the door, he opens a window. So
yeah, and three raccoons are in here, and our heating bill's outrageous.
Yeah,
God, stop it.
Right.
So anyway.
Wow, that was a big digression.
Well, what do you have to say?
I actually like Psalm 119.
I do too.
It is a celebration is a good word. I mean, I take it in chunks, but yes,
you have
to.
I
like this. Yeah.
I mean, I actually preached on this past summer when I was an interim pastor on 119, and just read 8 verses, a particular selected 8 verses to give them a taste of it. And one of the things I love about this is how it highlights the gifts of these songwriters. I mean, we think about those and, oh, wow, Psalm 23, that's really pretty. Just the talent involved to put something like this together is, as an artistic work, I just marvel at it. And the creative element of it, I marvel at it.
And I don't get too much time to study the Psalms, but I had to write on Psalm 23 for some curriculum I was working on. Mm-hmm. And I marveled once I got into it. What appeared to be a simple psalm had all these levels of Israel's history and nuance, and wow! It was amazing to get into Psalms. I could see your attraction to the Psalms after just spending a little bit of time and getting beneath the surface. It's just it's wonderful, and they're a kind of self-contained, something you can. Mm-hmm. I work with a narrative. My specialty is 27% of the New Testament. Luke, Acts. So it's kind of like you can't carry it with you. Memorize that. I guess I could memorize that, but
and you can approach it. I mean, one of these things about the Psalms is you can approach it sort of in a singular way or a more holistic way, right? I can look at 119 and everything that's going on, or look at what 119 is doing in Book 5. Look at how it approaches the whole Psalms in general. So there's different ways to.
So you can
read it anthologically. Is that a word?
You'd say it is.
I feel like I'm going to put it in my own words instead of using all those words everybody else is using.
Right.
But you can read it as an anthology, or you can look at it sort of canonically and say, well, 119 is doing some interesting stuff here as we move toward the end of this altar and celebrating Torah. So, absolutely. But again, the whole heart is there. Lots of words for commandments and statutes and ordinances, things that we don't normally associate with things to celebrate, but remembering that this is God's instruction, again, his way for a meaningful life. So that is something to celebrate.
Yeah.
That is
and celebrating, saying it out loud. It's like singing, who said it? Was it Luther? Who said he who sings prays twice. There's something about it, the celebratory declaration that is powerful.
All right.
Bueno. That's for Izzy. Don't hate me because I know so many languages.
You're amazing.
Poorly.
You're illiterate in so many languages. It's remarkable.
I'm a Renaissance. I'm a poor Renaissance man.
Would you like to do Corinthians?
Yeah, let's do Corinthians.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. And so, brothers and sisters, I could not speak to you as spiritual people, but rather as people of the flesh, as infants in Christ. Doesn't sound very nice. I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you were not ready for solid food. So he's probably reading from Deuteronomy as opposed to, say, Jeremiah, just really building toward
This is like potty training stage.
Even now, you're
there
still not ready. For you are still of the flesh. For as long as there's jealousy and quarreling among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving according to human inclinations? For when one says, I belong to Paul, and another says, I belong to Apollos, are you not merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you came to believe, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. The one who plants and the one who waters have a common purpose, and each will receive wages according to the labor of each. For we are God's servants working together. You are God's field, God's building.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I know we were going to do this podcast yesterday, and our schedules got crossed. And so I'm trying to remember this. I've got one note on this.
Yes.
I'm thinking, wow, I probably would have served myself better. And then I'm straining to look at it. It says, are we not merely human? And I have scratched it. Are we not men? And
we are Devo?
We are Devo. That's not going to help me much.
That's probably... Only you would have to write a study note. We are Devo.
Wow.
Are you not merely human?
Yeah, I think that kind of gets to the
You
heart
are
of this.
Devo. Well, we can move on then, I guess.
Yeah.
On to Matthew. No, maybe not.
Wow.
That is a callback. That is.
That's like,
we're
what is it?
we're skewing old on this
70s?
podcast. Yeah, late 70s, early 80s here.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Maybe I should splice in some music at this point.
It probably would be.
know what we're talking about.
What
I'm
we do?
pause for a musical
Whip
interlude.
it? Are we going to play
No.
Whip it? No.
Is that from Whip It?
Oh,
Whip It? I don't remember.
No, that was just.
Okay.
I assumed any Devo song would work
no,
there.
I
I
have to do
didn't.
this one. Speaking
Oh,
of
I see.
what we're talking about.
Boy.
I don't think people knowing what we're talking about is always the issue.
I mean, if we're going to start dropping Devo references, we're going to have to pursue that Ovaltine sponsorship or something.
Yeah.
We are skewing pretty old at this
Maybe
point.
we should do some fake commercials just so that we could do this.
I think so.
Like Fresh Step or something. cat litter or something.
Oh.
So this is
Are you really going to try and bring this around now?
Yeah.
After we've wandered here?
Segue.
All right.
Paul certainly does that.
Okay.
So Paul's been talking about
Well, I know.
foolishness.
All I'm going to say is I know who here are children and who here are humans, and so far there's no humans, no spiritual people, just people of flesh.
Yes. Yeah.
Mere
so.
babes.
Yeah. Afraid so. So this is, let's see, coming out of 2, he was talking about foolishness of the
What's
cross.
wisdom and what's foolishness?
Foolishness of the Corinthians, his own foolishness, and then segueing into circling back to some problems he identified right at the outset, and that is people are separating off into separate cliques
Right.
and groups rallying around certain influential teachers, and he's probably still in the area of using their own language, a little bit ironically, because he's using verse 3, for you are still of the flesh. That's probably something they would make a distinction between spiritual and fleshly, not a natural distinction that Paul uses other than between Christians and non-Christians.
So I mean, you were talking earlier about sort of a proto-Gnosticism possibly that he's dealing with, that this could be a situation where are you not of the flesh would be a terrible insult to a people that are prioritizing.
These are the people who think they're so spiritual and mature.
Right.
And enlightened. And Paul says, wait a minute, you're doing this. Aren't you still of the flesh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't even... He did talk about there is wisdom, there is mature food at the end of 3, or there is a mature revelation, but now he's going to say, you guys weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak to you that way. But he is using their categories. I couldn't speak to as spiritual people, even though Paul would say, you guys are a new creation in Christ.
Right.
You guys are spiritually made alive in Christ. But I had to speak to you rather as people of the flesh, as infants. So, yeah, it's always the problem of irony that you could be misunderstood. This is a kind of an inside conversation here.
Well, and then also, if I couldn't speak to you as a spiritual people, but people of the flesh, so he's already insulted them by calling them the thing that they're going to, sort of relegate to secondary or even worse. And Paul has now repositioned himself as having the special knowledge that they claim to have, that they weren't even mature enough to process that. So he's in many ways reestablished his authority.
He's doing that. Yeah, a lot of that. And the thing is, Gnostics, when Gnosticism's full blown, 2nd century, they use these texts.
Yeah,
they use him critiquing this orientation and misunderstanding of Christianity. Gnostic Christians then take Paul's language, which is meant to be ironic, and using it as non-ironic.
It's funny. I just got a text this morning from our friend Jim, who was saying that when the first Bible translation was done for the Vikings, for that area, they left First and Second Kings out because of the violence and the bloodshed.
Yes,
because the translator felt like the Vikings didn't need any encouragement in that area. So he was afraid they would take the text and use them badly. Here's the circumstance where the text was taken and used badly.
There's something to that. Yeah, I think so. So you could. There's things you can't maybe can and can't share with people at different stages, or you wait till later. It's a fascinating to think about that as a Bible translation or discipleship. People, people take things out of context.
Right. We do that at times where I cover texts in ways in my freshman classes that I will cover differently in a class of juniors and seniors,
right,
because they've had some time to think and mature and be able to think about the way in which we look at the text enough to now you're ready to listen to something.
Or even over the course of a class, like beginning absolutely with Psalm 8 rather than Genesis 1 about what is our place in this world,
right?
Or is that The Little Mermaid?
Actually, at the Lion King, I think. The Lion King, from the day we arrive on this planet, and blinking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
See, I do Psalm 8 and I do Psalm 104 as a reminder where Psalm 8 says that we are a little lower than the angels. And Psalm 104 is, God made, animals and I think people too, and they do stuff. And then moves on.
They do stuff.
Like Psalm 104, we're just sort of, and people he made.
Yeah, and that's kind of the vision of Revelation 5, where it's like, 4 and 5. People are in the mix. Also ran.
Creation's nice. Yeah. I mean, there's people. Yeah. Cool.
And you're making a distinction between creator and creation. So depends on how you're using that. Yeah. So he's getting into some specifics here when he's talking about chapter 1. He's talking about people separating off. Here we see it appears to be that people are following certain personalities. So 3-4, when one says, I belong to Paul, another, I belong to Apollos. Are you not, let's say, human, so we don't get into Devo here? Are you not merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you came to believe, as the Lord assigned to each. Although Paul planted the church, as he'll remind them.
Right.
I planted, Apollos watered. Am I a hero? I'll let other people say that. But God gave the growth. That's not too heavy-handed here. So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything but only God who gives the growth. So it's about, the purpose is the growth of the plant. It's not who's tending it or who planted it. The one who plants and the one who waters have a common purpose, and each will receive wages according to the labor. And then he's just going to transition into talking about buildings and ultimately a temple. For we are God's servants working together. You are God's field, God's building. So that's the beginning of a transition there. Be building, and then it's going to be like, and this building is a temple. Oh, and by the way, I laid the foundation of that building also, Corinthians, unless you... I'm slipping into the secret Mark voice. By the way, I'm leaning into my mic. I laid the foundation. It's going to be really hard for people to figure out what in the world we're talking about. This is their first podcast.
If this is their first podcast, you have to go back to the beginning on that one.
Yeah. So Paul is saying you've lost the script. You've lost the plot. You're following personalities, and that's clearly a sign of immaturity. Although it might be a characteristic of a Corinthian sort of orientation, the town, the church, or as the town got into the church. This chasing after the new, the fad, the trendy. And that's not always something that people who are really mature and secure with their own identity will do.
Right.
I think there's a lot of giftedness, but immaturity at Corinth. So a dynamic, lively, immature, self-destructive kind of church. You got a real smorgasbord here.
Wow.
And it's
interesting
something.
that, when I looked at Deuteronomy, I talked about it in terms of, spiritual maturity.
Yeah.
And then that's the Corinthian passage is the issue of spiritual maturity.
I haven't really poked around to see, what's the common theme here this week, but I'm wondering if that's it.
I don't know.
I thought about that as I was reading. What were those organizers?
I mean, we could go with Torah being important and God's instruction if it wasn't for Corinthians. Because Matthew has that interpretation of Torah as well as Psalm 119 and Deuteronomy 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or mature instruction, mature teaching. Good. Yeah, so this is a rather well-developed argument. Several chapters spent on it in the early part of Corinthians. Not always the case in Paul's letters. Certainly, some of his longer letters, like Corinthians and Romans, certainly. So, but yeah, he's going to get into the a little bit later. Going to get into the issue by issue. Going to start dealing with it. But he's laying a good foundation here.
You ready for Matthew?
Let's see. I got Matthew here somewhere. Hopefully, it doesn't just have plastic rock notes on it.
Oh, I don't know what's going on here. Got something about Creedence Clearwater Revival. I don't know where that comes in. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll come back to me.
Must be a Christian rock band. All right, Matthew 5:21-37. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment." But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you'll be liable to judgment. If you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, "You fool," you'll be liable to the hell of fire. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there, go before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on the way to court with him, or your accuser may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you'll be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. You've heard that it was said, "You should not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of unchastity, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you've heard that it was said to those of ancient times, "You shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord." But I say, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one.
Okay, maybe I won't do that with the syllabus. The thing.
Yeah, that's probably.
Swearing.
I was reflecting on that
swearing,
syllabus thing.
Yeah,
calling God to witness for you.
Wow,
it's a little different.
Swearing by heaven or earth. Didn't God just do that? Wait a minute.
No, he said you shouldn't. He didn't say God couldn't.
All right.
Yeah. This is a do what I say moment.
Yes,
here. So.
it is. It's important.
So more interpretation of the Torah.
Yeah.
Full out unpacking.
It's
now.
probably, it's probably obvious to you, and I get it now after looking at this again, that he's going commandment by commandment, right? He's going to go, I think there's 6 antitheses of the commandments here. I think we get 4 of them in the reading today. So murder and adultery, and maybe we get 4. Yeah, murder, adultery. What else do we have here? We have swearing. I'm not sure maybe we have 3 or 4.
Well, the swearing, it's funny, I was just connecting it to commandments. The swearing could easily be the false witness issue.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it could also be taking the name of the Lord in vain. There are many who connect that to an oath context.
Okay.
Using God's name in a meaningless way.
Yeah.
As oath taking.
Yeah, that doesn't. These are some hard verses, though.
They inspired your puppets. Your puppet inspired Patches and Stumpy come from here.
Right. I have a video called Patches and Stumpy, who are two lesser-known disciples of Jesus, who.
You really focus on those lesser-known disciples.
Yeah,
that's a theme for you, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's not just the 12. Patches and Stumpy were very zealous, but not very knowledgeable, and one of them has an eye patch, and one of them has a stump, and Jesus is teaching this, and then they come up with their patch and their stump, and they say, Jesus, but we've done all this. What more do we lack? And Jesus says, go and learn what hyperbole means, then come and follow me.
Right.
And they look at each other and laugh and say, lessons learned. It's dark.
I do love that video. I'm not going to lie.
I still show that one.
One of
I
my
don't show
favorites.
that one. I don't show that. I should show that. I got to fix the audio on that one.
That's one of my favorites.
And then Talk Like a Pirate Day came around. I realized, hey, these guys are pirates. One of them has a stump.
And one of them has an eye
They put
patch.
a little hook in Stumpy's stump and an eye patch.
You know how many years we went to school for this? That's the thing we need to think about here.
I know. I posted that once on Facebook. I said, every now and then I think about all the years I spent in graduate school, and sometimes I wonder if it's really worth it. Then I realize I can make videos like this and feel better about life. Life doesn't seem so scary.
It's not as sad. Oh, so.
Well, I get hundreds of hits every year on Talk Like a Pirate Day. I should put a link to the podcast there.
Oh, that's amazing. So we've covered that. You're saying that poking out your eye and cutting off your hand is hyperbole, is what you're suggesting.
No, but if you do it, you want to do it in that order. You want to first gouge your eye out, then your hand, because you're going to have a hard time throwing it.
I don't think that this is a how-to. I'm not going to challenge. I don't want to walk into the lion's mouth here.
Or not at all.
There we go. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, right. Some people would say that some of this has been rearranged, but I'm thinking it has not. That's the order. Gouge, then toss. Okay.
Good tips. These are life hacks.
Tips.
Life hacks.
Life hack indeed.
As it were.
Life gouging and hacking.
So that's hyperbole, you say?
Yes, that's hyperbole.
Okay.
That's not for today.
Good to know.
That's common to memorable by exaggeration. People still do that with mnemonic devices, memory devices. The more exaggerated, the easier it is to remember. And this is characteristic of their rhetoric and that culture. Did I already talk about this? Did I already talk about the first Gulf War when?
No, go ahead.
Why not?
Why, sure.
The first Gulf War against Saddam with the Bush Senior.
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, just before things really broke loose, Saddam was using apocalyptic language of, if you put one foot in Iraq, then your sons and daughters will perish in their own blood. And, it sounds very like the blood will be up to the eye of the horse or whatever it talks about in Revelation. So it's like, and meanwhile, behind that rhetoric, people are digging holes in sand, getting ready to be bombed. Whereas the same day, George Bush Sr. says, we're reserving all options. Mm-hmm. And he had just launched 200 Tomahawk missiles. So that's a difference in their rhetoric and our rhetoric.
Okay.
Over the top rhetoric, in our North American, Northern European context, it's like understatement.
Okay.
Reserving all options. That's a threat.
Yeah.
That's a threat. In fact, I sure heard about the excuse me, the cyber hacking. They're still using that language. It's like, they're going to do something. Okay. Maybe soon. Okay. So this is hard for us to calibrate. I think.
Okay.
But it's not that you take it with a grain of salt, but the seriousness is behind the hyperbole. But not the hyperbole is meant to be taken seriously, but not literally.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And to step back and take the bigger picture, what we've been talking about since the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount is locating this within community. Mm-hmm. That if we somehow slip back into a list of prescriptions or a list of things to do, that's a difficult way to read it, particularly as an individual. And this probably is describing the characteristics of a community and the reality behind what that community would be like.
Well, then let me ask this question.
I hope it's an easy question.
It's not. if we are reading this in community, if we're looking at this in community, is there some manner in which the I and the I'm going to focus on the Patches and Stumpy passage, is a communal statement? In other words, if we think of Paul's body of Christ imagery, is there a sense in which it is putting someone out of the community rather than the community be misguided kind of idea?
Yeah, well, Matthew's not hesitant to talk about that, and we'll talk about something like that in 18. I think this is about
this is more
personal
individual.
Accountability and being circumspect rather than suspect of others. He balances that nicely with parables of the wheat and the tares.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because his point in later is you don't rat them out.
Yeah,
you just
not your job to
not
uproot.
your job to uproot or throw the bad fish back.
On the other hand, he'll say things about like if you're praying and you remember that someone has something against you, or if you go through the process of reconciliation in 18 and no one's and they're not open to that, ultimately when you bring it to the church, well then you're supposed to treat them as a Gentile, even though he's talking to Gentiles, partial Gentile congregation. But for me, I've gone back and I've been reading a few sources on this. People, I'm struggling because I don't have a lot of depth in Matthew, and this is the deep end. Of Matthew.
Yeah, this is the deep end.
This is the deep end. There's no lifeguards around. The lifeguards I've been turning to lately are Hauerwas and who quotes a lot of Bonhoeffer.
Mm-hmm. Those are good lifeguards.
Yeah, they are, and they're definitely two people who take life in community seriously.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back to that orientation of what is sometimes interpreted as an impossible ethic that brings one to God. They tend to read it as a rules and characteristics of life together. Mm-hmm. And that those things make this possible.
Well, I will say that the commandments that we're referencing here are the commandments from the last 6, which all refer to how to live in community, right? I mean, they're all honoring mother and father, not murdering. I mean, the first 4 deal with living with God, and the last 6 deal with living with each other in community. Right. Yeah. Just one of those little ways I show I love my neighbor, not killing him, just a little thing I do, not sleeping with his wife, just one thing I show I love my neighbor. Yeah. It's a little thing, but it's still, it's important, Well, it's important.
It does connect. I mean, these things like lust and adultery and murder, you're talking about people, if you think about this within the community, this isn't just like a civil law. This is like a tight-knit community. Mm-hmm. When you connect people to those and put faces on those things, that's going to make it much more of a reality and perhaps a livable reality. Mm-hmm. And if you think about community, it's like you may not always succeed, but you are in a community, you're on a team that has those gifts and is shaping you to become more and more aligned with this kind of this character. The thing that both Bonhoeffer and Hauerwas and Yoder would say is that this community is described this way because that's the character of the God whose name they bear. Mm-hmm. And so these are the standards. This is the character of this community.
One of the things that I think you can't just gloss over is when Bonhoeffer talks about that, he's talking about Nazis in his church. He's he's talking about trying to live in community with people that, and he always speaks, in Life Together, he talks about, it's not your job to decide who's the weaker or the stronger brother, and pastors shouldn't do this. Yeah. We shouldn't, we have to learn to live together in this. And he's talking about living with people that we would find difficult to live with when he's talking about that. Yeah.
This is like, what a wonderful community you're describing. Well, no, not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. This is a real, there were real problems in applying this and yet
and he was clarifying some of these issues in prison.
Right, exactly.
Part of the Reformation, he's Germany. It's something. So I have a few sources more recently acquired, and then I have older sources. So I go back and forth. I go, I should read more broadly in this. And then I turn to another commentary, and they're doing a real focused word study. Oh. And it's like, this is not helping me.
Right.
Whereas these very helpful commentators I have always return to the bigger picture of like, let's situate this. Mm-hmm. You're talking about someone you know, or you should think about this as someone you know and how you treat that. Or some of these discussion of divorce is against is countering male privilege, or how the laws of divorce have privileged males. Males could divorce someone; they could send away a woman, and this is, they're saying, here's a community that's so tight knit that not only does Jesus talk about maybe not getting remarried, but what would be a community that allowed a woman in that precarious relationship where she would have to get remarried. She would have to marry someone, and that's why Jesus says she commits adultery because you're forcing her to go get married to someone else. There's little reality for independence or life outside of marriage. You say, what kind of community are we talking about that would allow her to live independently and not force her to get remarried?
Yeah.
Or Jesus will say other places about not getting married in Matthew.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What kind of community are we talking about where you don't feel that loneliness and a big problem in modernity?
Right.
What's the character of that community that you are so wrapped up in the life of this community and the challenging call that it has been called to? Should start with another verb. That gives your life meaning and relegates, becomes these become lesser issues. And that's the big picture, that it's a challenge to realize, wow, what is Jesus really calling this community to? What is the task, and how does one live?
Let me see if I can explain what you just said.
Yeah.
No, but let me add that sense that what you're saying is that this is a time when there is no option for financial or emotional support apart from a woman's relationship to a man.
Right.
And Jesus is presenting a world in which, with a calling and a community that provides meaning and support, financial and emotional, so that a woman doesn't have that kind of pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
As I've listened to some of our podcasts, I go, it's so good that Robert explains what I just did. Because I am not connecting the dots. I'm thinking, does this happen in class? Surely not. Surely this never happens in class.
We should team teach. And after you're done, and I get to say, well, what Dr. McKeever meant was.
Here's what he meant. Probably.
Oh, well, let me, now
Here's what those puppets meant.
I'm going to wander in here to my conversation with an Anabaptist and say, at the bottom, right? Let your word be yes, yes, and no, no, right? Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And anything more that comes from the evil one. This
especially when you're raising little kids. Yeah, no.
no.
To that.
That's what I thought my name was. Robert, no. This is done by many traditions to exempt them from Pledge of Allegiance, oath to. There are communities.
I was just thinking about this. When was I ever called to court? I was thinking about this today.
Yeah, and so, once again, do we want to? It just occurred to me as I was looking at this, the tendency for us to, like you said, get down to extract, what exactly is the application here? What's the prescriptive law that Jesus is putting forward? Yeah. When what he seems to be getting at is exactly what he's getting at with adultery and with murder, and that is that let your character be defined as one who lives in such a way that you don't have to be compelled by an outside reason.
Yes. I will now start telling the truth because I'm in court.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, well, now.
I was going to think, well, would I take that literally? I probably wouldn't, but if I did, I'd say something. I will now continue to tell the truth as in daily life. Right. Because you have a big book. Right.
It's not like there's any, and I'm thinking about the ways in which they would have been compelled.
There was quite a tradition of different kinds of oaths, built up there's a lot of tradition built up that's being interacted with all of these. One of them would be, well, you can swear by this, but you don't swear by this. You can swear by earth, but not by heaven. Okay. It's like, no, just don't.
Don't need to feel compelled.
Stop lying.
How about that? Let's start
lie
there.
In a sophisticated manner. How about that?
I'm sorry, that's never going to catch on.
No, I know.
You're just dreaming, pal.
Right, it's just ridiculous. It just came out of an election cycle.
Don't lie in a sophisticated manner.
Yeah,
come on.
Right.
That's never going to catch you.
Right.
But this again, going to character, right? I mean, this is
right.
You're not having the anger. It's not the murder that is the problem. It's the anger that leads to the murder. That's the problem that causes that issue.
I found that to be the case.
The adultery. It's the lust that leads to the adultery that gets that. It's not the. You know, the fact that you're lying. Stop having to be compelled by an outsider to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, your character should be one that is one of truth. So.
Yeah. So Jesus is getting to the heart of the matter, cutting through the externals, and it's an interesting paradox that he's getting to that, and in my reading of the Sermon on the Mount, I kind of need to step back and look at the big picture as he gets to the heart of the matter. I mean, that's kind of different focal points there, but
Do you think you're smarter than Jesus?
no, I do not. But he's cutting through stuff. Let's just say that. He's cutting through stuff. And there a lot of stuff has accrued over the years and how to negotiate these.
And the funny thing is, it's stuff that I think when you understand the commandments and the Torah in context is already there.
Yeah.
That he's simply...
Which is why he begins to say, don't think that I've come to abolish the law.
Yeah.
I've come to fulfill it.
Right.
And
this is the character God has always had. He's actually always wanted you to tell the truth. He's actually always wanted you to not commit adultery, not have a heart that desires adultery, not have a heart that desires murder. Mm-hmm. You know, he's always been that way.
He's always been that way, and he's always wanted to shape a people that has that character. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything else here that we're missing?
Yeah, we have got. There's all kinds of stuff. It's a Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, we're missing.
But we're not going to get it into an hour podcast. But it does get focusing on the heart of the matter, and that this is something that one doesn't achieve on their own. One does this in a close community that is shaping one, that's sharing these values and leaning on each other, and creates an environment where you can fulfill these commandments. You get to the heart of the matter, get to the heart of God's character, and begin to reflect that and be that light, the light of the world, and city set on a hill, and salt, and etc.
Well, that's I think a good way to finish this up.
Yes,
to find that community that allows you to have that kind of support and be that kind of person. It's pretty amazing.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thanks so much for listening.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Have a good week.
Blessings.